Welcome into K-State Online. I am Mason Voth. That is Derek Young. Here we find ourselves Thursday ahead of the Sunflower Showdown. K-State just completed their second bye week of the season. They have one more to go. It comes after this really interesting two-game stretch. Road trip to KU, back home against Texas Tech, maybe the best team in the Big 12. I still believe that they are, as long as, Baron Morton comes back to life.
Yeah, two things there. They need Bear Morton. I think everyone jumped to conclusions by thinking that Will Hammond would be the long-term answer. That's why I kind of pumped the brakes on that. Proven right. So I'm going to pat myself. I'm going to pat myself on the back
Utah's
of that.
bad.
Yeah, that too. And then another element to that, and this is a tangent, but I wanted to get out in front of this. I think they took their eye off the ball with that Tortilla Gate distraction, to be honest. Because how many press conferences and press releases have they sent out?
They've had to spend a lot of time talking tortillas the last couple of weeks down there.
The PR management, I like Kirby Hocutt, the guy, but man, the PR management of this situation has been a disaster.
Yeah, that's just they've had to do a lot of talking about that, like more than what feels like the required amount. They seem really concerned. It's so weird to me. They have all this money, yet they're worried about spending $100,000 to keep a school tradition alive on a game by game basis. So, they've had their eyes on a lot of different things down there in Lubbock. Our eyes in Manhattan have been on K-State and what this game is going to be for multiple weeks now, since there wasn't a game in the build up to it. And I know that people sometimes get a little worried because, hey, Chris Kleiman, bye week, you start to suck yourself out a little bit about that. I wouldn't worry too much if you're a K-State fan in terms of the bye week thing. He's like right around 500 after bye weeks now. So that was a little bit more than what people needed to try to take into consideration. That also includes one of those bye week wins where he's 5-6 now, came against KU in 2020. So I know that was a pretty bad KU football team. I just want people to know, though, like it can be done. So the bye week's not what should concern you. What maybe should concern you is the weather forecast for this game on Saturday now, DY, because originally it looked like, hey, maybe the rain's going to cut out of here like early in the morning on Saturday. So it's going to do a nice job of giving us good fall football temps, but you're not going to have to deal with any precipitation during the game. Well, that is no longer the case. It looks like rain is going to be a factor in some way during this game. Now, is it going to be heavy? Who knows? But it looks like there's going to be precipitation throughout the course of the game. And as we know, for K-State, that happened against Iowa State this year. They lost. It happened last year against Houston. They lost. It happened. You can go and find the Iowa State game in 2023. Snow. They lost. Like, this team has not handled poor weather well since really the 2022 season when they won that game against Missouri in blowout fashion with some rain. Also, it should be noted, the 2023 game at Mizzou, there was some rain that fell during the game. K-State ultimately ended up losing it. So some of it is, I think, a factor. Some of it's just weird coincidence. But this team has struggled when conditions have been less than ideal.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of a coincidence, but man, if it happens enough, then you start to feed the beast a little bit. So, I mean, and part of it could just be that the mental makeup of the team. Remember before the beginning of the season, we were kind of calling them soft, not really tough. You do have to be tough to kind of endure these kinds of conditions. So I think the toughness has returned to this team. So I have little concern about how it just affects them generally in the terms of it being a trend that they're not able to adapt or overcome. Now, what it does for this matchup specifically is interesting. Kansas can run the ball, but I think they would rather throw it, to be honest. I think they like to keep it in Jalen Daniels' hands more than anything. He's taking care of the ball this year. I would probably have him in the top 3 or 4 quarterbacks in the Big 12 if I was ranking it right now. I think he's been that good, and he was really impressive really down the stretch last year when they finally stopped losing close games and then played spoiler to everyone down the stretch. So I think he's a good quarterback. They still have Daniel Highshaw when he stays healthy during a game. He leaves a lot of games banged up, but he is probably a better back than anyone that Kansas State will throw out there on Saturday. So, but again, Highshaw's availability also tends to be quite limited. But I think KU
and LaShawn Williams showed up as questionable on the availability report last night.
So I think KU would rather throw it. Now, if you're Kansas State, would you rather run it because your running game hasn't been the greatest? Let's be honest, especially when Dylan Edwards is not out there. Then it's really when Dylan Edwards is not full speed, this running game has been okay, average at best, sometimes worse than that. And they do have the rushing game profile. I know it's getting a little bit better in the last few weeks with Joe Jackson, who's run it a little bit better in the last few weeks. But they do across the board have a similar rushing profile to West Virginia. And KU smoked West Virginia. Let's just call a spade there. So I don't know. I get the KU's rushing defense is not good, but they kind of kept West Virginia in check enough. They've just played a lot of good rushing offenses, to be quite honest. So that's an interesting thing too, because like I think we've always said that Kansas State needs a running game at least to close games out. But to get the leads and to kind of get the momentum they have in a lot of these games, it's also been through the air, or at least the run pass threat of Avery Johnson himself, especially when Dylan Edwards, again, is not full speed and he's not even going to be available at all. So I think it negatively affects both offenses, to be quite honest.
Well, and I would throw in terms of the weather and the coincidence versus is it a trend with K-State and the bad weather, what the when it gets wet outside, it is done. And these games that I mentioned, it has exposed K-State's flaws. So if you go back to the 2023 game, what killed them in that weather was that Abu Sama was just able to skate past everybody and get a couple of shoves in the end zone because nobody seemed to be able to get the footing to have a good tackle for him. And so big plays were amplified in that game. And that's something that the K-State defense has struggled with the last 3 years, is giving up explosives. And then when it gets wet outside and it's rain, K-State, you can't be throwing the ball as much as they do in those situations, but they have to because the offensive line struggled last season running the foot late in the year, pushing and letting them run the football. And that was with DJ Giddens and Dylan Edwards healthy for the most part. Now this year, you think about the Iowa State game, you basically had a quarter and a half, 2 quarters of that game where throwing the football was a really poor decision. And K-State couldn't run the ball because Dylan Edwards got hurt. The offensive line was struggling, and Joe Jackson didn't really do anything worth a darn running the football until the last couple of games for K-State. And so stuff like that has just amplified what your problems are. And that's, I think, why it's been a detriment to K-State is, who knows? Maybe they are, maybe they aren't a tough team. Maybe the weather isn't the reason directly why they're playing poorly, but it is the reason why they can't do certain things that they would have a better chance of being successful with. And that's how this game could be impacted because like the best thing for K-State's offense to do right now, as it has been all season, is for Avery Johnson to throw the ball to 3 really good receivers when they're out there and healthy. And none of them were on the availability report yesterday, which is a good sign. They've had a bye week to rest up. And so you think you're going to have pretty close to full strength Jace Brown, Jerron Tibbs, Jerron Bradley. And Avery Johnson's been a good thrower of the football this year for the most part. So you would like to do that. That's probably your best approach to scoring against Kansas, because I don't know that you're going to be able to run the ball effectively because this offensive line in the way it is now is so new and fresh. And I'm not ready to say that what Joe Jackson's done the last 2 games has fixed what his issues might be, or that he is capable of being the true lead back for a team in the Big 12. So that's where the concern comes from K-State, is that the issues that they have are things that can get amplified when the weather gets bad. And that could cause serious issues for them against Kansas, because like you said, there's more faith in what KU can do running the ball than what K-State can.
Yeah, not a lot of faith in either one. I think if KU is one-dimensional, their running game is pretty easier to key on. That's why this rain is going to be interesting because, like, I think Kansas State's defense is good enough, tough enough, especially the way it's starting to come along, that if something becomes one dimensional, I think it can, if the rain is enough, then I think the defense can lock in on Kansas because I don't think Kansas's run offense is so good that even if one dimensional, they can have success. I think if you kind of know what's coming, I think you can stop it. Now, if they're able to get Jalen Daniels out there slinging it, that's a little bit different, but that might be tougher in the rain. Avery Johnson was not good in the rain when he was trying to throw the ball in Ireland. Now,
or at Houston last year.
yeah, Avery's has a little bit of a history where he is nowhere near the same kind of thrower when conditions are poor. And obviously that might be the other quarterback too. We just haven't seen him be able to, I guess, in spite of the rain, still throw the ball. It's just never happened. You talked about the three receivers. I would also add in Garrett Oakley there. He's really becoming a weapon too. Played a lot better in the last few weeks. The passing weapons are there for Kansas State to have a really good passing offense. So you take that away, then K-State's one-dimensional. Look, their running game has not been good enough to be good on itself. It needs a passing game to kind of help it get it through the door. And if it's not there, then you'll really wonder what this offensive success looks like because Kansas State's great success this year, where they've had the most success aside from Dillon running the ball against UCF, has been through the air. So Joe Jackson has been better, but even if you look at the numbers, I mean, of the last 2 weeks, with a better and improved Joe Jackson, it's still nothing that's going to blow you away. I mean, if the defense knows it's coming, if you're one dimensional, I don't think that's a good setup or a good situation for that. So without the rain, I'll be honest, one of the better bets in this game is the over, but with the rain, I don't know if it gets there.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to come down to the quarterbacks taking care of the ball in the wet weather. Are you going to be able to be as explosive in the passing game as both teams have been at times this season? So the weather, it could be a big wild card in what we see in this game, which then is going to pull into some other factors that I'll bring up here in a little bit.
Lance Leipold, you mentioned Chris Klieman on a bye, 5-6. I think he's starting to almost rectify that record a little bit in the past few, if I remember correctly. Lance Leipold off a bye week, 5-1.
How about that? Yeah, Chris Klieman 2-1 after bye weeks the last 2 seasons. Beat UCF this season. Beat Colorado last year. Lost to Arizona State last year after a bye. But prior to last season, Klieman had lost 4 straight games off of bye weeks. Iowa State in 2020, Iowa State in 2021, TCU in 2022, and Oklahoma State in 2023.
So in his defense, those are some really good teams he played. I don't have the opponents written down, so I think a lot of this is probably just almost a coincidence and probably depends on who you're playing. Lance Leipold, all those bye games that I just talked about, a 5-1, all at home. They won't in this entire tenure. The first time that they will play a road game after a bye week is actually later this year in November when they go to Ames.
That's fascinating. And like to what you're saying there, 2020 Iowa State won the Fiesta Bowl. 2022 TCU played for the national championship. 2023 Oklahoma State played for the Big 12 championship. And in let's see, well, 2 of those 4 games, so Iowa State and TCU, 2020 Iowa State, 2022 TCU, K-State had to play. They got down to playing their third string quarterback in both of those games for different reasons. So
yeah, so there is a lot of like almost luck coincidence to. I put less stock into post bye week records than most. Is what I was.
Yeah, and look, I kind of laid this out when I was talking about because something both of these teams have, and I probably need to update it before this game because this is the next thing I was going to talk about. If you have the weather, that's going to be this little equalizer here, if you want to call it that, or could bring some different variables into the game. We have 2 of the 3 worst coaches in the Big 12 in terms of winning 1-score games. Because Chris Klieman's win percentage as of a few weeks ago was .333 in these games. That hasn't changed. Actually, they haven't played another 1-score game since that Baylor contest. Lance Leipold, .357. That also has not changed for him. because that includes the UCF game that they played to one score. There was not a one score game with Texas Tech. The only coach worse than those two guys in one score games over the last 3 seasons in the Big 12 has been Scott Satterfield at Cincinnati. And so you're in this situation now where like the records for those guys, Chris Kleiman's 5-10, Lance Leipold is 5-9 in one score games. That to me, when it's that significant, okay, you can read into that a little bit more. When you're 5-6 off of bye weeks and you're around 500 in anything that's like that specific, I just go, yeah, that's, football. It's kind of a random type of outcome, especially when, we have a handful of games there that we can point to different scenarios and say, okay, like here's what was up in these games. Here's why it looked like this. It makes a lot more sense when you look at it that way. So
just I said it to you, but Jay Clifton just announced that he's done with his mission and he's going to return to football.
Oh, well, can he play this weekend?
I don't know. I doubt it.
Yeah, we'll see how that goes. Interesting news. A little Jake Clifton update for you.
I wonder if it'll be at Kansas State, if it'll just what about BYU or Utah? I don't know.
BYU may not be a bad choice these days with how they're playing. We'll get back to talking K-State KU in a little bit. We've got more to break down from that game. We'll shift into best bets now, though, to go over. It's been a few weeks. We didn't have a show last week because there was no game. So the update of the records is there. I'm 10-14. DY is 13-11. I was 2-1 the last week that we did it. DY was 1-2. My loss was, I told you guys about Red River, and I said, look, as long as both teams score a touchdown, this thing's going over. Oklahoma did not score a touchdown in that game. It would look, if it were me and I was a college football coach and I had to decide what quarterback I was going to play, I would have liked to know if he could physically hold on to the football with his surgically repaired hand. It was apparent that John Mateer could not in that game. But then I did get the other two right. And honestly, it doesn't even matter what they were. I guess one of them was the over in K-State TCU. That happened in a hilarious way because almost the entire first half, you're like, this game's not going over. And then just points everywhere else. And I could not tell you what the last one that I had was. So that was a win. DY, I know that your only win from that one was BYU miraculously in overtime against Arizona. You got Oregon incorrect against Indiana, which, hey, been there. Oh, my other one was Texas A&M. Whoever A&M, it was Mississippi State. They were playing at home, I think.
A&M's a wagon. They cover every week, man.
Yeah. So there you go. There's your update.
Oregon. Maybe I had Nebraska. I don't know.
No, that was an earlier one. I can't even remember off the top of my head now. I had just looked at it and I thought about pulling it up and like showing everybody, but I was like, what's the point? Nobody cares from.
I think I had TCU.
No, I don't think you did pick TCU in that game. I don't think it was one of your best bets. Okay. I'll do some digging. So you explain your three this week as you try to get onto a better streak here.
Yeah, well, it's a risk taking the Cyclones. I think one of us has taken Iowa State each of the last 3 or 4 weeks, it feels like.
Them a lot.
And we keep getting stabbed in the back by Matt Campbell and the Cyclones because they are a program going in the wrong direction, at least this year. Maybe not in totality. I'm not going to say that. But their team this year is going in the wrong direction. I know it's the bad injury luck, but BYU is coming off Holy War. They're going all the way to Ames. Like, if you consider the circumstances, the caliber of team they're going to be playing, even in spite of the injuries to the Cyclones, where they're going to be playing, like what happened the prior week, you're undefeated, so you get everyone's best shot. If BYU wins this week, it's one of the best wins of the entire Big 12 season.
My thing with BYU, I'm with you. I oddly like Iowa State this week. Obviously, they're favored for a reason.
Yeah, but we keep backing them, and they keep.
Yeah, but it's also like I watch enough BYU games to go like clearly Kalani Sitake is a good coach. But like, yeah, they've got the hey, we're gonna go find a way to win this thing. It's not pretty. They don't look like a good football team doing it, but then at the end of the day, the result always says that they're a good football team. But this is a unique circumstance for them to after that game. Like, I mean, you've had to play just these games consecutively that are pretty taxing on you. and now you have to go to Ames, and I think they'll be fired up. So, and Iowa State has to this is get off the mat or whatever. You're screwed here. I mean, reality would the crude way of saying it would be this is shit or get off the pot time for Iowa State, because
they're a sinking ship if they
you
lose.
can't go score 17 points at Colorado and lose to that team.
They're a sinking ship if they lose this game, to be quite honest. It's a must win for Iowa State.
I did look it up. Funny enough, the other one that you got wrong, do you remember now?
No.
You had Michigan State minus 8.5 against UCLA, which I told you I did not like. I said, I don't know. I went the other way on the Bruin thing.
Yeah.
And now look, new team. They might win the Big 12, the Big 10 this year. DY.
They might win the Big 12 too.
I'd rather see them play for a Big 12 title than some of these teams.
Let's not limit them. I like the Canes. I know that's a huge number, 30.5, but they're playing Stanford, who probably thinks they're high and mighty for beating Florida State. Newsflash, that you shouldn't feel high and mighty for beating Florida State. Florida State sucks. I think Stanford still sucks. I think Miami's probably a pissed off football team, and I don't think Mario will hold back from running up the score if he can, because Miami's kind of got to look good doing it now, because they do have that loss to Louisville. Now, if they go 11-1, they're fine. If they go 11-1, funny enough, they might still not play for the ACC championship, which might be a good thing for them, because then they don't expose themselves a little bit more. But I think you're getting a pissed off Canes team here. As long as Carson Beck doesn't throw 4 interceptions, I feel pretty good about it.
Look, I don't know why, but I've always just kind of been like a, hey, quit talking bad about Frank Reich guy. So watch out for Stanford here, DY. They're not going to win, but you're 30.5. Don't do that to Frank Reich. He deserves better than that.
I feel good about the games. And then Tennessee 9.5. They're playing Kentucky. I realize this might be like a game Kentucky gets up for because it's some kind of quasi rivalry of some sort. But they just took Texas to the wire in overtime. Now maybe that's not impressive either. But I just don't know if Kentucky gets off the map.
Yeah.
And covers this number against Tennessee, because contrary to Texas, Tennessee can actually score.
Yeah, look, Kentucky only had enough in the gas tank to play one Orange UT close this year. So yeah, I like Tennessee there for you. All right. I am a notorious Diego Pavia Vandy hater.
This is a reverse jinx, isn't it?
So this is a no, because you know who they're playing this week, DY?
Mizzou.
Yeah. So
college game days in Nashville.
As much as I don't like Diego Pavia and the Vanderbilt thing, I don't subscribe to it. We know that I'm not a Dorkwitz guy. So yes, Vanderbilt minus 2.5. I mean, come on. If you lose to this Missouri team, are you kidding me?
I'll say this, and you probably won't like it.
No.
But I think Vanderbilt actually might be pretty good.
Yeah, well, look, I think that there might be a world in which they're okay. But cool schedule, Vanderbilt, whatever. I don't know.
If they don't turn the ball over in the red zone, they probably beat Bama too.
I mean, Vanderbilt, who have you played, Vandy? Like LSU? Ooh, Brian Kelly, the biggest failure of all time as an LSU head coach.
But by the way, Brian Kelly might get fired.
Yeah, that's good. Illinois, we know that I'm an Illini guy. I ride with Alec Bussey. They are plus 4.5 at Washington. After thinking Washington might go and beat Michigan last week, never again will I put faith into the Huskies. So screw Jed Fish and your terrible football team, Brett Bielema. At least going to keep it scrappy. I think Illinois probably wins this thing if they're still trying to be a good team. I know they got injuries backing up on them, but I don't like what I saw with Washington last week. I can't put my faith into that.
Yeah, Illinois lost the home to USC, and it still haunts me a little bit. I don't know.
They beat USC.
I mean, okay, never mind.
Illinois, they did their losses respectable. You got housed by 53 at the number. Indiana. 2 team in the country, Indiana, and then you lost at home to the number 1 team by 18.
Okay, so you lost to the top 2 teams in the country. Okay,
yeah.
I had them mixed up. Yeah. We'll see. You got to go to Seattle.
It did take a last-second field goal to beat USC. You're correct about that, but
But USC's not terrible, so I get it.
Yeah, it's 2:30 game though. You're not having to go late at night. None of that. Big Ten Network. Who's watching? Not me. So
you don't think Washington State's running out of gas?
I think because they've come so close the last few weeks, you return home, you're playing a MAC team that, yeah, sure, Toledo, fine, whatever. They're 4-3. You get a 4-3 MAC team at home. You've come oh so close to beating like good teams on the road in the SEC and ACC the last 2 weeks. You have to come home and be able to get like this could be a seminal win of the Washington State season and their future. Like this is I'm on pins and needles waiting for the Greg Woods 1,000-word feature story Sunday morning about how the last 2 weeks bred a big victory for the Cougars. So yes, Washington State. I know it's bold because I do go, I don't know, maybe they were just screwing with the good teams, but no, come on. If you're Washington State and you want to try to build this thing, you got to win that game.
Okay, I'd hesitate, but I get you.
Yeah, hey, look. I didn't find a lot of games overly appealing to me this week. Last week was terrible looking around. I was like, this is gruesome. But
I kind of like South Carolina against Bama. Like
I'm done with South Carolina. They can kiss it.
It's more of a fade Bama moment because they just got through that gauntlet of like 4 ranked teams. So like maybe they fall asleep at the wheel a little bit, just enough at South Carolina, who is typically good at home. Like I think what Memphis did last week against UAB, embarrassing as it was, and that's embarrassing, losing to UAB as soon as they fired Trent Dilfer. I think that also says that they were looking ahead to this game against USF. So I kind of like Memphis.
I'm with you. I looked at that one and I thought I could get behind Memphis. We'll talk. Let's just do it right now because I got some Big 12 thoughts to get off my chest.
Okay.
In this game, in this scenario, because Texas Tech, Oklahoma State, who cares? Texas Tech's going to be fine. They won't lose. Cincinnati at home against Baylor. I think Baylor's going to win the game. I think Cincinnati's due for a loss. Baylor kind of due for a win, given how the season's gone at times. So this is just hey, college football doesn't make sense. This is how I'm playing it out type of deal. And then on the other side of things, the other Big 12 game that I would mention, TCU minus 15.5. Pretty attractive to me for their game at West Virginia. So
West Virginia might be the walking dead right now. So I don't disagree. On the surface, I like what you're thinking here with Baylor Cincinnati, because like I'm just kind of waiting for the clock to strike midnight or whatever they say when it comes to Cincinnati a little bit. That's not a disrespect to them. They're a lot.
Yeah, I don't even think they're bad.
No,
like, I don't think they're this good though.
I think they're solid. My thing is, I don't know if Baylor's tough enough to win on the road.
Yeah, but it's Cincinnati.
I know, but like you have to have like there's a certain, regardless of how tough a place is. I'm not saying Cincinnati's like this Thunderdome where it's tough to play, but like you have to have like this mindset where you're kind of like insane, kind of tough to win on the road. Like Baylor won at SMU, I guess, but
yeah, I was gonna say here's your gotcha journalism moment. DY Baylor 2-0 on the road this year. Winning percentage of 1,000 in road games this season.
SMU and what, UCF?
Oklahoma State.
Oh, that might as well be a home game. They probably have more fans there.
I both probably had no fans at that game.
Cincinnati will actually have more fans than those two places.
Who's going to have the worst attendance in the Big 12 this season? Oklahoma State or Baylor?
Oh,
I think Oklahoma State still packed the fans in last week against Houston they played?
I remember thinking it looked pretty bad when those guys were shirtless by themselves.
That was for the Baylor game a couple weeks ago. They had a night game against Houston last week for homecoming that looked pretty good.
Oh, well, it's Oklahoma State's homecoming, right? That's a big deal there. You can't really judge that. You said, who'd you say, Oklahoma State or Baylor?
Yeah.
Arizona.
Yeah, Arizona would be in the running. I wonder if somebody tracks that easily to try to
you have to do it by percentage probably though.
Yeah,
because the capacities are different.
I don't think the Big 12 in minor league baseball they will that's a legit stat that they'll track and they'll put in their game notes and everything is the attendance standings, but they don't have that here. So I might have to go and compile that for my own reference points.
UCF's probably doing all right. Houston's doing probably all right. They're only have one loss.
Yeah, I was going to make fun of UCF, but I guess, Lance Leipold's talking about they had a good environment for that game against KU. So I guess maybe they are packing it in a little bit.
Well, I just think the name Scott Frost kind of brought the goons back a little bit there.
43,229 for the UCF game against KU. So I guess
that's probably a high percentage, I would think.
Yeah, I mean,
I wonder, and I know they were kind of juiced to get Rich Rod back, but how much is West Virginia going to have the rest of the way?
That's a good question too. I don't know that West Virginia would. I mean, golly, I'll be interested. My cousin is going to the West Virginia TCU game this weekend in Morgantown.
I will say, of the teams that are kind of like middling or not doing like super well, that are still bringing the crowd really well, like probably overachieving crowd wise is what I guess I would call it. Colorado still is just packing the freaking place in Folsom. Hats off to them. Kansas State deserves it. Kansas State's selling out every game despite not being 500 at any point this season, right?
Yeah.
Or no, 101. They were 101, right?
Oh, true. Well, but they never played a home game when they were. I guess they played Army. So, so West Virginia, they're kind of a tough thing to judge on this because their most recent home game was against Utah when they were 2-2, and so they're only their home games they blew out Robert Morris and they beat Pitt. So you could still kind of get people on board. I don't know now after you get blown out by Utah and then you lose at BYU, you're blowing out UCF. I'm not sure how many people are going to show up for a 5:00 kick or 6:00 kick against TCU, but maybe. So I don't know. That's schedule corner in the Big 12. Let's get back to K-State KU and talking about this game where KU is a 3-point favorite. First time since 2009 when the Jayhawks are favored to win this game. If you go and look at how that season ended up playing out, it makes sense why KU was favored in that game. To some extent, they were 5-3. They won their first 5 games of the season that year and lost their final 7. And K-State was what ended up being the 4th loss in a row, 17-10 game in Manhattan. And it started this 16-game winning streak for K-State. I know based on how you follow this, would you agree that KU deserves to have the 3-point tag here as a favorite, or were you expecting it to be the opposite way, or maybe it to be a higher number for KU?
No, it's about what I think it's a well-priced game because it also means if you were playing in a neutral site that it'd be a pick 'em essentially. And I think that's fair because I think Kansas has plenty of flaws that can be exposed. I think Kansas State has plenty flaws that can be exposed. Kansas, if you look at the numbers, they were really dominated by Missouri. They had to escape UCF. They got the doors blown off of them by Texas Tech. They just haven't really been more than an average football team this year. Kansas State was well below average at one point, now to where I think they built themselves towards being an average team by the way that they played against UCF, Baylor, and TCU, where they probably should have been 3-0 in that stretch. The fact that they're not is why they're not an above average football team, quite frankly. So, yeah, I have nothing wrong with. I think it's a really good number. It's what I would have it. I think it opened at 2.5. Is it 3 now?
It's bounced around in some places. 3 is the most common number that you'll see right now. So it does highlight that I think both of these teams are pretty even. One's 4-3, one's 3-4. I think both have played this season to where you go, okay, the records are justified based off of what you've seen from them, where both have the upside. It is up to 3.5 now, by the way. The most recent check of BetMGM. But both are similar in some areas. You look, both are averaging just 4.5 yards a carry this year. And the run game hasn't been anything to write home about for them. You're pretty reliant offensively on some big explosive plays involving, a high-end receiver, Jace Brown, Emmanuel Henderson. K-State, I think when healthy, has the better stable of, guys behind their number one receiver, where we've already seen Jerron Tibbs and Jaron Bradley have really big catches in games this year. I think K-State needs to lean into that a little bit more. I mean, think of the throw that Avery Johnson threw to Jerron Tibbs against TCU, where they completed it down across the middle of the field, and Tibbs had to go up and just make a play. I think K-State's offense needs to revolve a little bit more around trusting those guys to go and do that because of everything else. Both teams are going to want to get the tight ends involved. Garrett Oakley has had great moments for K-State this year. He's also had some forgettable ones. So, like, it all makes sense, given the circumstances, given the way they've played. KU's played, I think, a little bit. Their floor has not been as low as K-State's this season. Now, some of that might be because of the competition level that they've played. Like, the schedule's somewhat imbalanced.
I don't think so. I think that had everything to do with KU never. Now, I can't say this with 100% conviction, since I'm not hanging on pins and needles of every KU game the way that we are with K-State. But like, K-State went to like the first 3 or 4 games looking like sans Iowa State game in Ireland, looking like they couldn't.
Yeah.
They looked like they wanted to be somewhere else. I don't think I really ever got that vibe from KU. And that's where the floor originates from, in my opinion.
Yeah. No, you're probably right about that. And it, like, you talked about K-State being soft earlier. We have questions that, like, did the way the season started in Ireland impact how they played over those next 3 games? And they never got it on the tracks. And it's like, KU started the year against a okay, but not really good Fresno State team. And like, they didn't have to face that. And then the hits kind of kept coming because, they had a big game. They had an easy game the next week, their FCS opponent. And then they played their rival Mizzou, and Mizzou did some things to kind of keep them in that game until the end. And which, that undersells what KU did as well. KU still had to find a way to keep themselves in there when they got those chances. But like, KU's been a little bit more resilient this season. And I think even the way that they played against Texas Tech, I was impressed to some extent how they hung in there. They got down pretty quick in a big way. They had to take a beating all night long. And I think there is some level there where this is probably a different KU team mindset-wise than a lot of the ones in the past. And so it's going to be fascinating in this one is if the last 2 seasons have hardened them and gotten them to a point where they are much more mentally resilient and they can get through some of those mistakes and still find a way to push through because they want this bad enough, or if there's something about this game that just has a really strong mental grab of them. And you're going to get, a similar occurrence the last 2 years where it's tight. K-State does some poor things, but Kansas is going to make the catastrophic mistakes that ultimately let K-State keep this thing going for one more year.
Yeah, but what I would say is, like, I don't know if fear or being scared is the right term, but because they were able to turn what has typically been, games that are 30, 40-point games, and in some cases where Kansas is just not competitive with Kansas State, they now have these last 2 years, which, look, I get it. There was heartbreak involved. Their fans were probably pissed off at the world. They felt like they had every right to win those games, and they did. I mean, if not for Rich Miller dropping an obvious pick 6 2 years ago, Kansas wins that game going away. And then there's obviously last year where you lose a lead where you felt like you had the game properly managed and in hand as well. So I'm a little bit different than what you were probably alluding to, in that I think Kansas, because of the last 2 years, probably has more faith in this game than they ever have, because they realize this K-State team's not nearly as good as the last 2, at least not the way that they are currently playing, even if maybe the roster is similar or whatever it may be. Obviously they got some holes now due to injuries that have limited what they can do, that being Kansas State. But like, they're looking at it like, man, we were getting thumped over and over again. And now all of a sudden, the last 2 years, we probably should have won. Now you're talking about a K-State team that's not even as good as those 2. This is our opportunity. I don't think they go in anymore wondering if they can win, or being defeated and wondering if they can keep it close. I think, and maybe they win in this way the last 2 games, but I think they're going in to this game feeling like the favorite, feeling like the better team, knowing they are the better team. Whereas even in the last 2 years where they probably still should have won, I don't think that they probably had this same feeling where they were by far the better team. And maybe they aren't by far the better team. I know Kansas State fans are probably yelling through the screen at me for saying that, but I guarantee you the Kansas players feel that way more now genuinely than they ever have.
Well, Kansas has played like the better team this season. And then the last 2 years, you can look at it and say that, 2023, it was a pretty smoke and mirrors approach to the game that KU had to try to get them to that point. And it wasn't enough in the end. They didn't capitalize when they had the opportunities to finish it off. Last season, we've talked about it. K-State's moving the football down the field to start the second half, and they're about to go up 2 scores, and it feels like they're about to just pull away and get a comfortable win there. Instead, the Avery Johnson fumble happens, and K-State has to really make a mad dash and scramble, and you're snake bitten, and K-State gets you again. So I think you're accurate in what you're saying here, and in close games like what we've seen the last 2 years and what we're anticipating on Saturday, the power of belief and thinking you belong can do probably enough to get you over the hump in these games now, where just that little difference of mindset is going to put you in a different spot of thinking no, we can do this. We're here. Because again, everybody should be able to say Kansas has been the better football team this season than K-State, because you look at what KU's done, who are their losses to? Oh, on the road at a team that's somehow winning games in Missouri. Oh, Cincinnati, who's 6-1 and might play for the Big 12 title right now. And Texas Tech, who, when their quarterback is healthy, is easily the best team in the Big 12 and could very easily win a game or two in the college football playoff. On the other side, we saw K-State lose to teams that I don't think are very good outside of Iowa State, and they didn't play well in basically 3 straight games against teams that I think are terrible. And it was solely because they looked like they didn't really care. They didn't want to be there, or they didn't have kind of that fire. And I think they've gotten it back, but this is going to be a really good exercise to see if you can get it back all the way and truly have a hard stop to the crap that they were going through at the start of the season and turn it around and really be a different team for the second half of the season. I mean, Kansas came close to doing it last year, but what we saw was they weren't able to do it for the entirety of that turnaround because they lost that game to Baylor in blowout fashion, which I didn't think would happen. And so that's what you're looking at here is K-State going to be able to continue this turnaround? Because if they do, K-State's been the better football team over the last 3 weeks than KU. And I would rather have that version of K-State that we've seen the last 3 weeks than any version that we've seen of Kansas this year. But both teams have played 7 games. We're over halfway through this season. I have to be able to take a bigger approach and idea to how this thing might go. So I do agree with what you're saying there.
Yeah, it's fair to say Kansas State's been a better team over the last 3 weeks. Holistically, across the board, probably would take KU's what they've done. The three of the four teams that K-State has lost to, I think KU is better than, though. Maybe not Baylor. That's I don't know who to say who's better between KU and Baylor, to be quite honest. But I know KU's better than Army and KU's better than Arizona. Now, I don't think Kansas State's going to revert back to that version of that team, at least not this week. So maybe it doesn't matter, but it's something to remember.
Yeah, and it's hard to drive that picture out of my head that's the team that we saw. So I
mean, that team that lost to Army in Arizona they
lose by 21 in this game. That team, But here's the thing: we said even with that team when they were playing that way, is that we didn't think that this would be a game where that team showed up like this. That we thought this might be the last time all year that you got any decent look of a K-State football team.
It could still
Unfortunately, we saw a better one the last 3.
It could still be that way. This could be the last time.
Yeah, that's true. Especially if they lose, like then it
That's
could
what I'm
just
saying.
hard stop, shut them down. So
Because there is a world where Kansas State plays well and still loses this game.
yeah, and that's the thing that's different from the last 16 years is that
maybe the last.
Even then, like K-State didn't play particularly well
they didn't in 23.
In 23.
Last year, I felt they played fairly well. Yeah, I did.
Yeah,
the Avery Johnson fumble just turned the game a little bit, but like I thought K-State still played well last year.
Yeah, and I mean that was a part of their stretch where they were feeling it a little bit there, where they had gone and they blown out Oklahoma State, won at Colorado, blown out West Virginia. Like the offense was doing really good things at that stage of the game, and they snuck it out.
7-1 start. Yeah, no, like I guess like last year they played well and barely won. I think you're going to play well this week and either barely win or barely lose.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see how it ends up going for the Cats. So, time to put you on the spot and have you give us your dream and your nightmare scenario for K-State. So, is this going to look like a 2010 K-State KU game in Lawrence or a 2008 K-State KU game in Lawrence? Those are dream and nightmare type games.
Oh wait, the nightmare.
Yeah. 08.
That was last time KU won, right?
Well, yeah, last time that KU won, and then also if you just kind of look at how that game ended up playing out, 52-21 was the score of that one versus what was it, 52-10 was the 2010 score in Lawrence. So
I think the dream is like the you probably need a little bit of help from the weather, but you really make KU one-dimensional. They don't really have a great running game. You kind of pin your ears back. You really hold them down, and you're able to run the ball and throw in spots, and you win by a couple of scores. That's probably the best case scenario. I think that's one of the least likely outcomes, to be quite frank. But a 2-score win, like it's probably not impossible, but very, very unlikely, especially in a game that's probably going to have weather conditions that affect both teams. If you talk about a nightmare scenario, it's like K-State doesn't have Dylan Edwards, so the explosiveness is really tempered because of that and the weather. KU stops the run game. K-State just does nothing on offense, and they get held like 10, 13 points, and Kansas scores 24, 27 and wins.
Yeah, thinking about how this game plays out. I mean, yeah, the dream scenario would be is that the offense looks fine and continues on. They play mistake free for the most part. They can move the ball. They can find ways to get in, and then you get enough of the you get gifts like TCU gave last week or 2 weeks ago, and then you end up in hey, we're kind of cruising this entire second half there. I just don't think that we're going to see that because I don't have that level of faith in K-State and in doing it on the road. Like
I think if someone makes those kinds of mistakes, it's Kansas State.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. If somebody wins this game going away, it's probably going to be Kansas.
Going away, I would say Kansas State, to be honest. But if a team's going to lose the game late with mistakes, I think it's Kansas State as well.
Oh well, I'm thinking more in like the vein of like how K-State won the TCU game.
I don't think Kansas can do that. Maybe I'm wrong.
Well, I think if you're just gifted a few, here and there, and I just like if there's a team that's going to come out flat or have like some level of disappointment or complacency that leads it to kind of looking like that, I think it would be K-State. I think, yeah, you're probably looking at
KU could be tight. That's the only thing.
Yeah, I mean, this is such a psychological game
for them. Well,
for everybody. Like
I think the players probably, as I was talked about earlier, I think they probably have some confidence going into this game, at least the ones that have been there before. I mean, I understand there's a lot of first-year players too that just don't really know, never been in that situation before or understand the 16 game. That's also the thing. How much does psychologically does a 16-game winning streak matter when rosters turn over as much as they do, right? There's a little bit of that here, especially since I think KU turned over their roster much more than Kansas State, especially when we're talking about first-time starters. So there's a little bit of that. So I think the players will probably be a little bit looser because they haven't been around as much for the streak or have that affect them as much. But if they have been here a year, they're like, man, we were right there. We should have beat them. We were right there. So there's no psychological disadvantage, I think, to the KU players. There could be to the KU coaches.
Yeah, I mean this is where there's kind of like this rally that you need to have.
The
Like,
most pressure on anyone in this game is Lance Leipold.
yeah,
Because can he be the
I don't agree with that. I don't think there's any pressure at all on Kansas in this game. If anybody has pressure for Kansas, there's one guy, and it's Jalen Daniels. And I think it would just be on him to feel like he owes it, that he's been here this long. He's done all these great things. Like, what? So what? If you're Lance Leipold, you come in, you take him to bowl games, and you keep doing what everybody else does. You just lose K-State every year.
Because he might not even have that to. There is a world, if you look at their schedule, that if they lose to Kansas State, they aren't going to a bowl game this year.
Yeah, no, that's true.
They're going to have I think it's very possible that if they lose to Kansas State, Kansas is a losing record again. And if you're Lance Leipold and if you're Kansas, can you say this is definitely we're definitely on the right track? If in 5 seasons you had a losing record 4 times?
Yeah, but I mean, you're Chris Kleiman. You've already put up with a ton of crap this year. People already don't want you around still, and then you're going to lose this.
There's nothing to lose, I don't think.
I mean, not in terms of like what the totality of his career is, but like fans are going to turn on you.
I think
real hard and not ever come back. Like, you at least have some guys fence riding right now, and like this is going to be stamped on your legacy at K-State. Like if you're the coach that loses this streak, especially with this team, this collection of talent, like that's going to be on you forever. And people are not going to forgive you for this.
I mean, that's possible, but he also has to face the best Kansas teams in that streak. So, and I get that doesn't matter to a collection of fans, and that's fine. And
yeah, because they're still mediocre teams. Like the best Kansas teams in there are still mediocre teams. Like
right. But he's facing the ones that actually make it to bowl games and stuff, at least. So all I am saying is like, I get what you are saying. There is logic to that. And there's going to be a collection of the fan base that it isn't on Kleiman's case that would be if he lost to Kansas. I totally get that. But that would happen if he was 10-1 and lost to Kansas. So it's just that game. So if you look at it that way, then you're saying it is impossible for the most pressure not to be on Chris Kleiman every time he faces Kansas, which maybe that's the case. I disagree because Lance Leipold's legacy is like – there's going to be Kansas administrators and fans looking themselves in the mirror and wondering if Lance Leipold is still the right guy if he loses to Kansas State.
Well, look, maybe, but I think also Leipold's legacy is kind of cemented in, okay, you were the guy that stabled this ship, and we appreciate that, and like gave us some good things. Like you're the guy now that gave us the opportunity to think, do we need to dream bigger?
Okay, then I can make that case for Chris Kleiman. I think his case legacy was already imprinted a little bit when he was winning the Big 12 in 2022, when people said nobody other than Bill Snyder could do it. So I can make the same argument for Chris Kleiman. I think both of their legacies are kind of imprinted. The good, right? Chris Kleiman, you won the Big 12. Lance Leipold, you brought Kansas out of the dungeon of KU football, where you were there for decades and you did resurrect the program. But like Chris Kleiman's still has a winning season, has at least a respectable team almost every year. Lance Leipold is like, if they lose to Kansas State and then go on to have a losing record in 4 or 5 seasons, maybe a bowl game in only 2 of those, not a win over K-State. Like there is a lot more question marks about what you are as a coach. There will be a question marks as to if Chris Kleiman's running out of gas, but not to him as a coach because he's already cemented that.
Yeah, but like that, to me, it's like, what's your fan base going to care about? Because this is all about the fans more than like the general perception. So the general perception of Chris Kleiman's already baked in. Like he doesn't have to worry about that. But like, if Chris Kleiman loses this game, he is an enemy to K-State.
If
Lance Leipold loses this game, it's just like okay, Lance might not be the guy. Like maybe we need to go do something else, like big picture.
So
But within
I
like
think that's more
this
catastrophic.
game itself, like there's pressure on Lance Leipold for his job in this game, maybe like in terms of like that. But like, guess what? The fans don't care if Lance Leipold or whoever else is the coach at Kansas. They just want somebody that's going to come in there and win. So if he comes in there and
That's
he
why I think
loses to
there's more.
K-State a 17th straight time, it's just the same old, same old. That's where like I get what you're saying, and
Right, but okay, there's more pressure on Kansas State than is what you're saying. I think there's more pressure on Lance Leipold.
Yeah,
Lance Leipold is fighting for.
I mean, I guess, yeah, if you like making money and you want to take care of your family and kids with, that kind of stuff and have a job.
This game means more to Lance Leipold because he hasn't solidified himself at Kansas. Chris Kleiman already has. Yes, Chris Kleiman can be the guy that lost to Kansas and ended the streak, but he's already proved that he's a good enough head coach and was the right guy at Kansas State. Lance Leipold, you got him out of the dungeon, but if you have a losing record in 4 or 5 years, you haven't done enough.
Yeah, I just think at the end of the day, with how this plays out, is that if K-State loses, Chris Kleiman's getting a large chunk, if not all of the blame. If Kansas loses, KU fans aren't talking. The first thing they're bringing up is not Lance Leipold. They're just going, "Woe is me! Here we go again." Like,
no,
it's going to be like how Iowa State fans treated K-State the last, however many years until Matt Campbell showed up, where it's just like, oh, this freaking Bill Snyder guy. Like, what the heck? You just can't do it.
I think it's different because Iowa State never had that guy that they thought was the answer. Kansas thinks they have the answer. So if they get told that they don't, I think you're wrong. I think there's going to be some fingers pointed at Lance Leipold if they lose this game.
I don't know. We'll see. I think there's much more pressure that resides on K-State in this game, and I think it's very minimal for Kansas. And if there is somebody, it is probably Leipold. But like I don't know. It's like I said, this is a very psychological game that's playing out.
Yeah, I think because I think if you put yourself on the other side, I think what you have to realize is Kansas thinks that they finally figured this football thing out. I think that's
what they have in some respects, and like it's
hard
anymore to do this.
But they start to think they haven't if they're going on a losing record in 4 or 5 seasons.
Yeah. If this thing falls apart for them, then they do probably have to start to go, you know what? We've built some really nice things here. We've built the program to a solid footing where people go, oh, you can win some games at Kansas. Like you can find somebody else to take that job and maybe do a little.
Right. But like but I don't know. Because if they they lose this, they're 4-4. They'll beat Oklahoma State next week. They're 5-4. They'll probably win in Arizona to give them 6 wins, even if they lose this game. I get that, but it's still at Arizona, and then you play Iowa State and Utah to finish the year.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. It's again so many fascinating angles about this game where the game itself could easily play out, and you have two very mediocre teams, and you go, this isn't the most attractive game. We know with this game right now that the real game is what takes place before and after off the field in terms of the conversations and everything with it. That said, DY, your prediction for what takes place on Saturday inside Memorial Stadium.
Part of the reason why I like the spread is because I do think it's a 3-point game. That's when you're like, what do you think about the spread? I'm like, oh, I think it's pretty right on the money. I had it 31-28 KU, but if the weather is the weather, then I think that's probably too many points. So 27-24, 26-23.
Okay. Here's the deal. It rains.
KU, by the way. I have KU winning.
If it rains,
it gonna rain a lot.
Then it's probably unwise to think that K-State wins it because they haven't been winning those games. And like we talked about, they do some things that poorly that aren't conducive when the weather gets poor. You have to do those more often, and trying to do the things you're bad at repeatedly typically doesn't work out. But I am a big believer in you trust the trends in conferences like the Big 12. I always picked Oklahoma to win the Big 12 in football until I got banged over the head multiple times that they weren't going to do it. I was picking Kansas to win the league in basketball up until the last 2 years. The first year with Houston, I was like, no chance. This is Kansas's league. Bill Self's inevitable. KU basketball is inevitable. So there are some things that are just certainties that they're going to happen in life. And one of those certainties is that K-State is going to beat KU. Final score on Saturday, K-State 31, Kansas 27. K-State wins 17 straight after another nail biter. You feel like crap the entire game. The 60 minutes, you don't enjoy a lick of it if you're a K-State fan, but you're on cloud nine, the drive home, or sitting on your couch once the game ends. So give me the Cats just because they always beat Kansas. They have since I was, let's see, where was I 16 years ago? Going on 17. 17, I'm 20, it's 10. I was in the fifth grade. So yeah, fifth grade. I would have been playing. I know exactly where I was. I was listening to the PA announcer at my youth football game announce the score and just sitting over there riding the bench, cursing Ron Prince out under my breath. That dang guy.
So was it 08 or 09?
It was 08.
The first win of the streak?
09 was the first win of the streak. Bill
09.
Snyder's first year back.
09, I was a sophomore at Ohio Northern University.
So, yeah, for no reason other than K-State always wins this game. I think they're evenly matched teams. You got to go with K-State until it's not K-State. And I'm gonna feel a lot better with myself if I pick K-State and they lose it than picking KU and they lose it, because DY, there's, believe it or not, 16 years of evidence to suggest that Kansas isn't winning this game on Saturday.
I don't think Kansas State runs the ball well enough.
Yeah. One thing we didn't talk about today that's also kind of concerning, K-State without Toby Asensami, when you look at Kansas and see how they handled Texas Tech's pass rush. You would have liked to have had one decent pass rusher against KU. K-State going to need somebody to step up in this game on Saturday, and I don't know that they have it. So, yeah, if it wasn't K-State, KU, it was just Team A versus Team B. We knew no history about them. I am probably picking Kansas in the rain on Saturday. But one team's going to have a Power Cat on their helmet. The other is going to have a Jayhawk, and the team with the Power Cat always wins. So that'll do it for today's edition of the KSO Show. Back again tomorrow. Drew will join me. We will talk more about this football game. Also, we have my interview with Jerome Tang that's going to be out on the KSO YouTube and podcast feeds, and Matthew Driscoll, got to talk to him as well. That'll be out on Friday. Then Saturday after the game, KSO Postgame Live, we'll break down what we saw, good or bad, from Lawrence. We also Friday night will be late going live after K-State and Missouri's exhibition basketball game. Our first look there, unless it turns out to be a total joke of a game and it is fake basketball, no need to react to fake basketball. We know I'm not an exhibition guy. You know, exhibition games, Harlem Globetrotters, Savannah Bananas, kick rocks, fake sports, not interested in you. We'll still talk about it, though. So that'll do it for us here at KSO. If you want more on this game and everything else going on with the Cats, head over to KStateOnline.com over at On3. Get signed up if you're not a member, and we will talk to you tomorrow.